All right. What do you want to talk about? I think the biggest news, I mean, there's a couple of really big news, but I think that Derrick Henry's injury is maybe the biggest news that we've seen. I know we'll definitely talk Von Miller, we'll talk other stuff, but Derrick Henry injury, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, the Jones fracture, I've heard 6 to 10 weeks.
So it's kind of like the most like Derrick Henry injury ever, where it's like, oh yeah, he broke his foot. He still had what 28 carries. I want to say, did he get the injury like 6 carries into the game? I
Yes,
think it was six.
it was either 6 carries into the game or he took 6 more carries after the injury.
Oh no, it was
But
early. It was early that it
yeah,
happened. It was in like the first or second quarter, so it must have been six into the game. He plays this whole game with a broken foot, and then they're like, "Hey, Derrick, you're out for the season. You broke your foot." And it's like, "Wait, not so fast. 6 to 10 weeks, and 6 weeks is mid-December, and we know what Derrick Henry likes to do in mid-December. So, just Derrick Henry perspective first, it kind of lets it show like, oh, the table's going to be set for Derrick Henry to come out here and just absolutely dominate, which he has done at the end of the season, which it would just be like the most like King Henry thing ever. But if he doesn't come back, and when he's not there, the Titans, it's maybe the biggest offensive loss you could have outside of quarterback. And I would even argue that maybe outside of a few quarterbacks like Rodgers, Mahomes, guys like that, it's going to have a huge impact on the offense. Like their offense it might be okay because they have other pieces, but it's going to completely change the way that they operate. So I think you're right about it being the most significant thing. The Von Miller trade's definitely really like a big deal, but I don't know. I think the Derrick Henry injury has a larger impact than pretty much anything right now because it puts the Titans. The Colts could win that division. They could realistically win that division because the Titans are not. I think they're going to struggle a lot.
yeah, Derrick Henry. I mean, you brought it up. If taking him away outside of maybe a couple quarterbacks, I mean, you talked about the impact on the offense. Yeah, they still have AJ Brown, they still have Julio Jones, they have Tannehill. The impact on the defense, they're not going to be able to pound the rock with Derrick Henry. The defense is no longer, and the defense isn't that good anyways, but at least they always get to know they've got a lot of time to rest in between the possessions. Now it's going to be much more difficult for them in that sense. And, you talk about the Colts potentially winning the division. The Colts are sitting at like 3 wins right now. The Titans, the benefit for them, very, very easy schedule to finish out the year. Even if they didn't get Derrick Henry back until the playoffs, I'm going to go over their schedule really quickly. This week, not easy. They play the Rams, maybe the best team in the NFL. But then they get Saints, which just lost Jameis. A lot of question marks there. They could be good. But then they have the Texans, terrible. Patriots, they've been pretty bad. The Jaguars, terrible. The Steelers, they've been on the rise. They're not that bad. They're actually a solid team. They play the Niners, who iffy. Sometimes they're solid. Sometimes they're pretty bad. It really depends. Then they play the Dolphins, who have been bad, and then the Texans again, who have been bad. So, like overall, like, does it even really hurt the Titans that much? Like, obviously, if Derrick Henry doesn't come back and dominate or anything like that, but like with the players they have, I feel like they still should be able to win the Titan number, which is 9, 10 wins, and win that division once again.
Well,
Like,
have they played the Colts yet?
yeah, I believe they've already played the Colts. I believe they've played the Colts twice already this season. Yeah, they beat them in week 3 and they beat them last week. So they're
Okay,
done
so
with the
that's
Colts.
a big deal for them winning the division then. And I
Yeah,
see lunch break here. He says, they have a 3-game lead with 2 wins over the Colts. Like, so,
yeah.
he says it there. But like that makes it a lot harder. So they have to win the game. But the thing is, they only have to be 1 game over the Titans. So if the Titans hit a skid, now it's good that they do have some not great games. I feel like the Texans ones, yes. The Jags are in their division. I don't really know what the Colts schedule is. The Colts should be a lot better though. They should definitely be a lot better because they were so banged up. But Ty still hurt. I don't know. They're still kind of hurt. Yeah, I don't know. I don't
The
have a ton
Colts are
of faith
tough.
in the Colts, but like, I don't know. It's just tough. I think the Titans will probably barely win the division, but there's a chance that Henry might have to come back and have 2 games at the end of the year where they have to win one of them or both of them to make it, and I think that could be the difference. That's why I think
So
it's just like it has the feeling of like a Derrick Henry, like, oh, like I don't know, like epic story, you know?
The Colts still play the Bills, Buccaneers, and Cardinals.
Yeah, it makes it a lot harder for them too.
Very difficult. Very difficult. I had to look it up to know. Very tough schedule. I mean, the Colts are gonna have to not win out, but I mean, they're gonna have to win every game outside of those games, and they still have the Raiders in there, the Patriots. That's about it. But like overall, I feel like this Derrick Henry injury, it sucks. I hate seeing a guy like Derrick Henry get injured just because he's so much fun to watch, and I do love watching the Titans play, which is ridiculous because they're like so atrocious outside of Derrick Henry, it seems like. But Derrick Henry,
their defense is going to get cooked, dude. It's
Oh,
Sunday night
yeah.
football against the Rams, and they can't flex that game because you have to be 10 days before. That's going to be a horrible football game to watch.
Is that the worst rule in the NFL? Does that lose the NFL the most money? The flexing
I don't know
rule.
why.
Like they had games. It was like Ravens Chargers, and they couldn't flex it. They were like, "Sorry, we can't flex this game," even though it's the only game of the week where two teams with a winning record, I think, were playing.
It was a good decision by them to not flex that one. It was
It totally worked out in the favor. But like overall, I feel like they lose so much money on just like, oh, here's another Sunday night football game. It's gonna be terrible. Like all the time.
So is that that's next week's. Oh man, it's gonna look bad unless you have like Julio Jones and AJ Brown just literally carrying the team because their defense is gonna. That is a horrible matchup for the Titans defense. Their corners are not good. They're banged up. I think Farley's out for the year, and he was already struggling. But like,
I mean,
they
the
don't
only
have
guy
talent.
they have is Kevin Byard. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the only guy, in my opinion. I mean, they have Bud Dupree, but he's yet to show as an individual player.
Well, they have a decent front seven,
It's
but
just,
their secondary is
it's
bad, like really, really bad.
you can only get away with a decent front seven if you have a decent secondary, and they don't.
Yeah.
So it's not going to work out for him at all.
So what's your final verdict on the Titans? What does it do? Does it all just come back down to does Henry come back in for the playoffs?
If Henry comes back, I think they're completely fine. Honestly, they could be better. You know, as a former professional athlete of myself who's experienced a Jones fracture, you know, I came back to I think it was middle school basketball team mid-season and was able to perform. In my first game back, I scored the most points I think I ever scored in a game. It was my first game back.
It was
so
two,
if Derrick Henry is anything like me, no, it's a little bit more than two. But if he's anything like me, an expert athlete, Derrick Henry will be completely okay, in my opinion. But like a lot of guys have had the Jones fracture. It's not an ACL, it's not an Achilles or anything like that where it's going to be crazy. It's like repairing the connecting bone, I think, between the foot and the toe. It's not wildly crazy, but